In April 2015, in the port of Antwerp, a ship was discharging pet coke. The discharge operations were well underway when two port workers board the ship. They're going to the hold to trim the cargo. They go through a hatch and descend a stairwell that will take them into the hold. The stairwell is enclosed, separate from the hold. There is a two-stage descent to the bottom with a landing midway down. The crane driver is working above and sees the men enter. He expects them to come out of the bottom door into the hold, but they don't. The driver contacts the foreman. Maybe he knows what's happening. The driver sees the foreman go to the top hatch to check on the men. He sees the foreman go in. Once more, the driver waits, but still no one comes out of the bottom door into the hold. The enclosed stairwell has swallowed 3 people. The crane driver decides to go and look for himself, but not before he alerts a supervisor. The driver then heads to the hatch and goes in. He is partway down when he sees all 3 men lying unconscious at the bottom of the stairwell. About this time, the driver starts to feel unwell. At this moment, there is a very real chance that he could become the 4th casualty. He makes a decision that perhaps saves his life. He climbs back out while he still can. This is now a fully fledged medical emergency. The lives of 3 men are at stake. A rescue team is assembled. They go into the stairwell and bring out the casualties. Emergency services try to resuscitate them, but it is too late. All 3 men are pronounced dead at the scene. Later, we learned that they died because there was not enough oxygen in the stairwell to keep them alive. This confined space was deadly. Anyone working in a port knows that they can be hazardous if risks are not controlled. Cargo, ships, cranes, vehicles, and mooring lines are just some of the more obvious hazards. Some hazards, though, are less obvious, like confined spaces. In this programme, we will look at what a confined space is and what makes them dangerous. What types of confined space can be found in ports, on ships, and on land? And some golden rules for protecting yourself and others. There are 2 parts to a confined space. First, it needs to be in some way enclosed. But just enclosing a space on its own does not make it a confined space. There also has to be a chance that a hazard in the space could seriously harm a person going into it. Harm might come from obvious hazards, such as water or free-flowing solids. But other hazards just cannot be seen. The biggest confined space killer is lack of oxygen, a hazard that you cannot see, smell, hear, taste, or touch. If oxygen levels are low enough, take 1 breath and you will pass out before you even realise that you are in trouble. The atmosphere in a space may suffocate. It may be flammable, explosive, corrosive, toxic, too hot or cold. These hazards might be caused by things in the space such as cargo, the work being done, or by natural processes. Cargoes may leak, be insecure, require work at height, produce gas, dust, or spores. Cargoes that you may be used to working with may seem straightforward, but have additional confined space hazards. For example, many ports, wharfs, or jetties with a crane and a forklift will handle timber and timber ships. If you are involved in this type of work, you will be aware of the risk of being struck or crushed. But were you also aware that 3 men died in a ship's hold because the timber cargo had absorbed oxygen to fatal levels? The work being done can introduce hazards. Welding can consume oxygen in a space, or oxygen leaks from airlines can increase the risk of fire or explosion. Chemical cleaners and fumigants can produce dangerous fumes. When a material rusts, it takes oxygen from the air. This can go unnoticed until it's too late. In 2007, 3 crew of the Viking Islay died in a chain locker. Natural corrosion of the steel structure and the anchor chain reduced the oxygen to a deadly level. Naturally occurring biological processes in sewers, storm drains, tanks and so on can eat up oxygen, as can fermenting crops in sealed silos. Natural processes in cargoes such as wheat, grain and biomass can also build up dangerous levels of toxic gases, such as carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide in a confined space. A space may be safe, but then something changes and it can become dangerous. For example, at the start of an operation, a hold can be tested safe, but close the hatches to protect the cargo and the atmosphere might change. Oxygen levels may drop or toxic gases could build up. Just because it was safe the last time you entered doesn't mean that it will be safe the next time. Ports can have their fair share of spaces that are enclosed. Ships' holds, access passages or stairwells, for example. But not all of them are on board ships. Just some of the possible spaces that can be found at a port include storage tanks, silos, freight containers, trenches, ducts, service spaces, sewers, machine rooms, pump houses, and inside the legs of cranes. Any of these can become confined spaces where the operations or conditions within that space makes them dangerous, and in some cases makes them deadly. There is a lot that can be done to protect you from the dangers of confined spaces. Most are common sense and will not be a surprise. Planning work properly, procedures such as permit to work, gas testing, personal protective equipment, training and so on are all part of protecting you and those around you. From your viewpoint, though, there are 3 golden rules. Never go into a confined space if there is a safer way to do the job. Only enter a confined space if you are authorised and safety controls are in place. If you are concerned for your safety in a confined space, get out and report your concern to an appropriate person. Make yourself aware of the hazards and stick to the rules. If you are unsure about anything before or during any work, talk to your supervisor. Look at confined space cases over the years and you will see a pattern. A person collapses and their co-worker rushes into the space to help them. The second person is also overcome and collapses, and the third, and so on. It is natural to want to go and help someone in distress, but in a confined space, doing so may just make things worse. Never run in to rescue someone who has collapsed in a confined space, because the same thing that has caused them to collapse could also affect you. If you see someone collapsed, raise the alarm. Always follow the emergency plan and your training. The kind of incident that happened in Antwerp is not unique. There have been others around the world on ships and in ports. These tragedies happen due to failure of systems and procedures. This is not just a problem on ships. 4 to 6 people die each year in the UK in confined spaces on land. If you work in a port, even if you do not go on board ships, you need to be aware of confined spaces. Don't be a victim of a confined space. If you're in control of a confined space or of people who may enter one, it's your job to ensure that methods are in place to minimise the risks. These will include: know where your confined spaces are. It is a good idea to have an up-to-date register of them. Risk assess them. Are there particular hazards in the space? Does the environment change? Might it be safe at times, but not always? Put in controls such as signposting, securing, training, and information to prevent unplanned entry. Don't do work in confined spaces if there is a safer way to do the job. Can the work be done remotely, for example? If work must be done in a confined space, plan and control it by methods such as permit to work. Train those who may have to enter a confined space, including what to do in an emergency. Test the environment for hazardous conditions before work commences. Remember that you may have to test for a number of different gases, such as oxygen and carbon monoxide. The people doing the testing should understand the potential limits of the equipment they are using to test the atmosphere. Make sure you provide them with the right equipment. A dust mask will not protect from too little oxygen. A gas monitor will only test for specific gases. Understanding the risks is vital. Make sure you have a rescue plan. Know how to safely recover casualties, what equipment will be needed. In this programme, we have looked at what a confined space is, the types of confined spaces found in ports, on ships and on land, and some golden rules for protecting yourself and others. So remember, never go into a confined space if there is a safer way to do the job. Only enter a confined space if you are authorised and safety controls are in place. If you are concerned for your safety in a confined space, get out.